Hey guys, thanks for stopping back to Pete's Garage. Now, before we continue on building the 427 Cobra, building some engine mounts and mounting the engine, I want to let you all know that my videos will be different going forward. I lost my best friend and my shop security, Shelby. She got really sick and I had to put her to sleep. So, you won't see her photobombing anymore. And you won't hear her snoring while she's laying in the chair. I'm going to miss her. Okay, so motor mounts. Now, the first thing is, if you're building a new car or putting a new engine in your existing vehicle, whatever it is, you have to make sure that the engine is level and plumb inside the vehicle first. So, since I have this frame and I have the car up on a dolly here that I'm working on, which makes it easy to work on, the frame is already straight, so I know my frame, the vehicle is sitting straight. What I did was I built this platform. That's just, you can see here, that the steel platform that the engine is resting on, and it's just sitting there all by itself. But most importantly, it's sitting there and it's level this way, so I know that it's square. It's sitting straight. It's also sitting square this way, right? Now, when it's sitting square this way for the intake, that means that the transmission or the drive line is at the correct angle, roughly 15 degrees down. This is a little bit less than that, but the transmission and everything is at the right angle going right to the rear end. And I have this, you can see I put this bar on here to show how straight it goes right to the rear axle. Now, in order to have the rear axle in the right position to make sure you're putting it in straight, is I got a couple 100 pounds of weight on the back of the vehicle, on the back of the frame, concrete and some big ass pieces of wood, just to hold it down to simulate a load. And I have the rear end jacked up to simulate what it will be like when the axle is all the way in the up position, so it's up as far as it should be. And you can see that when it's like that, that I have a nice straight line from my transmission, from my engine transmission all the way back to the rear axle, so my drive shaft will be nice and straight. So the first thing is to get the engine sitting straight. Now, by doing this and having this sit on there, I can move the body or the frame around the engine. Now, I'm very limited on where I can move the engine because the side pipe has to sit right there, because this is where it comes into the body, and this is the body opening, and I welded that bracket in there just temporarily to hold the side pipe where it's coming in the body, which means my side pipes have to end up here. Since the side pipes have to end up here, that's where the engine has to end up, so I don't have a lot of room to go and move the engine backwards or forward. It has to be right there. Okay, so what I did was, now I want to build an engine mount. Now you see I have my urethane mount on the inside there, and I've already started to make it, and I want to show you what a completed one looks like before I go ahead and make one. I already made one just to hold it in place, and I have this a root weld on here just to hold it, so that when I'm done here and I take the engine back out, I can make it pretty, put some nice welds in there. But what I have made is a solid engine mount that's welded to the frame, goes up to the motor mount with a big plate, and then square to the welded right back to the frame. So this will be welded right to the frame, and I'll have my urethane mount bolted to that, and that's what will hold the engine up. So that is the most important thing when you're building your engine mounts. First, you have to sit it in the vehicle or in the frame right where it's going to be. It has to be square, it has to be level, and the drive line has to be in perfect position. Now, what I did was, I didn't show this, but I built the transmission mount. So I have my transmission mount there, and I built that support bracket so that my transmission is supported right in line with my rear end there. So that's already made. Now it's just a matter of getting the engine bolted in so I can remove that frame and have the engine supporting itself in there, and then we'll make these I'm going to have to make a flange make a flange just like this for the exhaust. We'll do that next. So let me just show you briefly how I went about making that engine mount. What I do is I just make a series of paper templates, and I make the mount out of paper first so I know what kind of angles I need, and then I just put it on my metal and I outline it with my soapstone and cut it up with my plasma cutter. And I'll show you a quick tip how to cut straight lines with your plasma cutter. If you take a straight edge, and I just have a happen to have a triangle here, and if you set it and you take your cup and you put it right where the soapstone line is, right where you want to cut, and hold it there, it makes it real easy to guide your plasma cutter. Nice clean line. The straighter you cut with your plasma cutter, the less cleanup you have to do. Makes it nice and easy to make engine mount parts. Now that I have these pieces tack welded in place, I really want to weld this out of the frame, because if you do TIG welding, or I'm going to weld with a MIG on the inside, I'll TIG on the outside to make it neat. You don't want to splatter all over your engine and get burn marks all over everything, so I'm just going to pull that out of there and weld it outside. So there we go, finished motor mount. All I did was I cut a paper template for this. Is almost the same as the other side, and I just welded in that gusset, and it's all welded in from the inside. I'll make it pretty on the outside when I take the engine back out. Now let's see if we fit it in there. Okay, there's the finished mount welded in, and like I said, I'll come back when I get that motor out of there and I'll weld and clean that all up and put a nice weld all the way around, but it's welded in place. And I have the support removed from the center there, so the engine is now being supported by the motor mounts and the transmission mount, and it's completely supported on both sides. And I checked, and the crankshaft is dead center in the frame there, and you see the transmission is dead center to the rear end. So now I know that the engine is mounted. It's square this way, it's perfectly angled that way for the transmission, and my motor mounts are complete. So there you have it, guys. Motor mounts. Getting the engine mounted inside the frame, welding it up. Now I know there's a million different kinds of motor mounts and a million different ways you can make these things. This is just the way I chose to make it for this particular vehicle, which seemed to work out the best. The one on the driver's side is made out of a little thicker metal than the one on the passenger side, because the engine's going to want to torque this direction. It's going to want to yank up on this motor mount on the left side. So I'll make something to capture that motor mount. I'll talk about that later on. But in the meantime, that's making the motor mounts. Next we'll talk about drive shafts, exhaust systems, then we'll start plumbing up the fuel and getting it ready to start. Thanks for stopping by Pete's Garage.